Everyone assumes that smart people simply know more things, more facts, more answers, more of everything. But that idea isn't really true. The real difference isn't what they know. It's the way they think, the way they look at problems, and the way they deal with situations that make everyone else feel stressed. You don't need a perfect memory or straight A's in school to be intelligent. You only need to start thinking the way smart people think. Today, I'm going to share 5 simple ways smart people use their minds differently. These ideas are not difficult to understand, but most people never truly discover them. If you begin practicing these habits, you'll notice changes almost immediately. People will begin asking for your advice. Problems won't overwhelm you the way they used to, and you'll start feeling more in control of your life. So, let's get into it. One thing smart people do is they don't fight just to prove they're right. This is something most people misunderstand. When someone disagrees with them, they immediately turn the conversation into a battle. They argue harder, they get emotional, they try to prove the other person is wrong or foolish, but smart people respond in a completely different way. Instead of attacking, they begin asking questions. Real questions, not sarcastic ones meant to embarrass someone. They say things like, "Help me understand why you see it that way," or "What experience led you to think that?" Their goal is not to win an argument, their goal is to understand. And here's the surprising part. When you stop fighting and begin asking questions, people actually start listening to you more. They don't feel attacked, they don't become defensive, they open up. That's when meaningful conversations start happening. That's when people truly think about their own beliefs. Smart people understand a quiet secret. You cannot force someone to change their opinion, but you can guide them to reflect on their own thinking. And very often, when people reflect, they slowly change their minds themselves. Another thing smart people do is they look at the bigger picture. Most people get trapped by small problems. They fail one exam and immediately think they're not intelligent. Someone rejects them and they start believing they're not good enough. One bad day happens and they assume their whole life is falling apart. But smart people step back and zoom out, almost like a camera pulling away from a scene. They don't see one bad test. They look for patterns. Maybe they need a new way to study. Maybe they didn't sleep enough. Maybe they need guidance in a certain subject. They don't see rejection as proof of failure. They see it as feedback. They ask themselves what lesson is hidden in that moment. When you zoom out and look at the full picture, problems stop feeling like disasters. They start looking like puzzles, and puzzles can always be solved. Smart people ask themselves simple but powerful questions. What is really happening here? What part of this situation can I influence? What could I try differently next time? They don't panic. Instead, they prepare. Smart people also understand something that saves them an incredible amount of energy. They only worry about things they can actually change. Most people spend huge amounts of time worrying about things that are completely outside their control. They worry about what others think of them. They worry about the weather tomorrow. They worry about whether their boss woke up in a bad mood. They even worry about things that might possibly go wrong next week. All that worrying accomplishes nothing except draining their energy and filling their mind with stress. Smart people follow a simple rule. If they cannot control it, they don't waste mental energy on it. Instead, they focus entirely on what they can control. They cannot control if it rains, but they can bring an umbrella. They cannot control other people's opinions, but they can choose to be honest and kind. They cannot control whether they get a job offer, but they can control how well they prepare for the interview. This mindset saves them enormous energy they can use to improve things that actually matter. When you stop worrying about everything, you finally have the power to start fixing what truly counts. Another habit smart people practice is using quiet as a tool. Many people feel uncomfortable when there is silence in a conversation. The moment things become quiet, they rush to fill the space with words. They speak without thinking. They talk just to avoid the silence. But intelligent people are comfortable with quiet moments. They think before they speak. They listen carefully instead of interrupting. They allow other people to finish their ideas completely. And something interesting happens because of this. Silence often makes people pay closer attention. When you pause before answering a question, others assume your answer will be thoughtful and important. When you listen fully without interrupting, people feel respected and understood. Quiet individuals often appear wiser than loud ones, not necessarily because they know more information, but because they choose their words carefully. Try a simple experiment. The next time someone asks you a question, quietly count to 3 before responding. That small pause gives your brain time to organize a better answer. You'll be surprised how much clearer and stronger your responses become. The 5th habit might be the most powerful of them all. Smart people pause instead of reacting instantly. Most people react to everything the moment it happens. Someone cuts them off while driving and anger appears immediately. Someone says something rude and they respond with another insult. Something doesn't go the way they expected and they complain or quit right away. But intelligent people interrupt that automatic reaction. They pause. When something upsets them, they take a slow breath. They ask themselves a question. Is this situation really worth my anger? What response will actually improve this moment? If someone speaks harshly to them, they don't immediately strike back. Instead, they consider that the other person might be having a difficult day. They think about how they can respond calmly and constructively. This behavior is not weakness. It is strategic thinking. The person who stays calm while everyone else becomes emotional gains a huge advantage. The person who thinks before reacting makes wiser choices. Calm thinking always beats emotional reaction. When you look at all of this together, the message becomes very clear. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. You don't need to memorize endless facts or know everything about every topic. You don't need perfect grades or an impressive degree. What matters is learning to think differently from the majority. Ask thoughtful questions instead of trying to win arguments. Look for patterns instead of panicking over a single setback. Focus your attention on what you can influence and release what you cannot control. Become comfortable with quiet moments and give your mind space to think. Pause before reacting so that your actions are guided by reason instead of emotion. Most people will never practice these habits. They will continue arguing, worrying about everything, and reacting emotionally to every small problem. But if you begin using these 5 habits consistently, something powerful will start happening in your life. You'll notice solutions where others only see obstacles. You'll stay calm in situations where others become stressed or overwhelmed. Your decisions will improve because they come from thoughtful thinking instead of quick reactions. People around you will start asking for your advice. They'll wonder how you remain so composed under pressure. And the most exciting part is that none of these habits require you to be born with special intelligence. They only require awareness. They require choosing to think before acting. They require learning to control your responses instead of letting emotions control you. Think about that for a moment. Real intelligence is not about showing off knowledge. It's about how you approach situations, how you process challenges, and how you respond to the world around you. Anyone can develop this kind of intelligence with practice. It begins with small decisions, small pauses, small questions, and small changes in perspective. Over time, those small habits completely transform the way you think and act. Right now, choose just one of these 5 habits to practice. Don't try to change everything at once because that usually leads to frustration. Focus on a single habit for the next week. Maybe you want to practice pausing before reacting. Maybe you want to start asking more thoughtful questions instead of arguing. Maybe you want to focus only on the things you can control. Pick one habit and commit to it. As you repeat that habit day after day, it will slowly become natural. When that happens, you'll begin noticing the difference in how you think, how you handle stress, and how you solve problems. Step by step, your mindset will shift. And once your mindset changes, everything else in life starts changing with it.